The entire Fazbear empire exists because two guys cut labor costs by stuffing employees into deadly robot suits. That decision killed a child and set the template for decades of corporate negligence. Today I'm breaking down the complete hidden history of Fazbear Entertainment. Starting with the diner where everything went wrong, Fredbear's Family Diner. Every disaster has a humble beginning. Fredbear's Family, there started as a small local restaurant in the late 70s or early 80s, built around two animatronic mascots, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. Henry Emily designed the technology. William Afton handled business, a man whose moral compass was essentially a suggestion. Together, they built a partnership that would haunt families for decades. Here's the thing, the diner's entire model hinged on a catastrophic design choice. The Springlock suits worked as both autonomous animatronics and wearable costumes. One asset, two uses, zero redundancy. Great for the budget, terrible for anyone breathing near the things. One drop of moisture, one wrong movement, and the locks would snap, crushing whoever was inside. Which is, you know, not ideal. This wasn't just an oversight, it was a calculated business risk. At a birthday party, a child was fatally injured when the Fredbear animatronic's jaw clamped down on his head. The victim was likely Afton's own youngest son. The company's response? They quietly prepared to rebrand on a massive scale. A child died and their move was to scale up. But the way they did it is where this gets truly disturbing. A child just died in their restaurant. Most companies would collapse. Fazbear Entertainment decided to just get bigger. They transformed from a local diner into a full corporate entity and launched Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as a shiny new brand, complete with an entire mascot band. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, because nothing says we're totally safe now, like quadrupling the number of giant moving robots. Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated, the 1983 expansion. Here's the thing, the 1983 expansion isn't a recovery, it's a playbook. Fazbear Entertainment looked at a dead kid and saw a marketing problem, not a moral one. They essentially weaponized rebranding to escape accountability. Same dangerous people, same dangerous technology, just a fresh coat of paint and a new cast of characters to put on birthday party flyers. And it worked beautifully. If your metric for success is avoiding prison, the new Freddy's locations positioned themselves as a completely fresh experience. Safe, professional, totally not the place where that horrible thing happened. Meanwhile, William Afton was still right there, leveraging his insider access to keep abducting and murdering children. When kids vanished, the disappearances got framed as community tragedies, not institutional failures. Just a sad coincidence. Nothing to do with us. The corporate structure made the cover-ups clinical. Internal memos, legal teams, PR tactics designed to sever any public connection between missing children and their properties. Fazbear Entertainment didn't just survive a scandal, they figured out how to industrialize the cleanup process. But this was still the early days. The corporate machinery was just warming up. By 1987, they were ready to try something much more ambitious and much worse. The grand reopening. In 1987, Fazbear Entertainment tried to convince the world they had learned their lesson. They hadn't. They opened a brand new location featuring the toy animatronics, a shiny lineup equipped with cutting-edge facial recognition software tied directly to criminal databases. The corporate pitch was beautiful. These robots would literally scan the crowd, identify dangerous adults, and protect your kids. Safety built right into the mascots, the future of family entertainment. Here's the thing, that technology was a complete disaster. The facial recognition was either miscalibrated, corrupted, or just badly implemented, because instead of targeting criminals, the toys became hostile towards staff and potentially the very children they were programmed to guard. Fazbear Entertainment took experimental mission-critical security software and deployed it untested into a live public restaurant. Every family walking through those doors was an unwitting beta tester for a system that made things deadlier, not safer, which is, you know, not ideal. But wait, it gets dumber. To save money, the company kept the older, damaged, withered animatronics rotting in the back rooms, so you had antiquated haunted hardware sitting 10 feet from half-tested experimental prototypes. A dangerous mix of junk and broken innovation all under one roof. Then the bite of '87 happened. An animatronic bit down so hard hard it removed part of a victim's frontal lobe. And Fazbear's response? Close up, warehouse the assets, and start hunting for cheaper models. No technological reevaluation, no safety overhaul, just a corporate shrug and a search for a better bargain. But if you think that level of negligence is bad, wait until you see what happens when the budget really starts to squeeze. By 1993, Fazbear Entertainment has been beaten into the ground by decades of scandals, lawsuits, and closures. Their solution? Strip everything down to the absolute bare minimum and pray. The 1993 budget squeeze. The Freddy Fazbear's Pizza of this era is a genuinely depressing place. The walls are stained, the posters are peeling, and the whole restaurant has the atmosphere of a condemned building that someone forgot to actually condemn. But the real horror here isn't the decor, it's the math. Fazbear Entertainment is paying its night security guards exactly $120 for a full week of shifts. That is not a typo, $120 for 7 nights. You could make more money collecting cans out of dumpsters, and you'd face significantly fewer homicidal robots while doing it. And speaking of those robots, Fazbear ditched the fancy toy models with the facial recognition software and reverted straight back to the classic animatronics. Probably scavenged them from previous locations, bolted them back together, and called it a day. The corporate logic was that simpler technology means fewer malfunctions and less liability. Turns out, no. These things are possessed and roaming the building every night hunting the one guy on staff. But here's where it gets truly absurd. Fazbear is so broke or so cheap that they ration the electricity to the security room. You have exactly enough power to check cameras and close the doors for about 6 hours, and if you run out, you're sitting in the dark with zero defenses. This is a company that would literally rather risk a human life than pay a slightly higher electric bill, which is, you know, not ideal, but if you think a bankrupt pizzeria is grim, wait until you see what happens when people try to turn that misery into a tourist attraction. Fazbear's Fright. 30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza shut its doors for good, some entrepreneurs looked at decades of child murders and corporate scandal and thought, we should charge admission for this. Fazbear's Fright opens in the early 2020s as a horror attraction built entirely on the Fazbear urban legends. The owners scavenged old props, costumes, and documents from the original restaurants to construct a haunted house experience where thrill seekers could literally pay to walk through a stylized recreation of multiple child deaths, which is, you know, a business model. Here's the thing, it was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, fake scares, creepy mannequins, vintage Fazbear memorabilia behind glass, a cynical little cash grab, monetizing nostalgia and fear in equal measure. But then the owners found the ultimate prop, Springtrap, a decaying spring-lock suit containing the mummified corpse of William Afton. Instead of calling an ambulance or the authorities, they put him on display. Turns out the corpse still had a resident. Afton's spirit was very much alive inside that suit, and he immediately turned the funhouse into an actual death trap. The irony is almost beautiful. You cannot commodify evil without consequences. These entrepreneurs tried to profit off trauma and accidentally resurrected the franchise's original killer. Great. Add that to the list. The building ultimately burns down, a symbolic attempt to purge the last physical remnants of Fazbear's sins. Whether the fire actually finished the job is debatable, but the real lesson here is that Fazbear's history was never truly buried. It was just waiting for someone to dig it up for a quick buck. And if you think that's cynical, wait until you see what happens when the company itself decides to get back in the game. The resale, Fazbear Entertainment, found a new way to avoid consequences. Instead of one massive corporation taking the heat for decades of lethal negligence, they fragmented into dozens of small franchises. You wanted to open your own Freddy's? Congratulations. You assume all the risk while they keep the profit. It's corporate liability laundering, plain and simple. The Build Your Own Pizzeria catalog openly lists animatronics with tongue-in-cheek warnings about health hazards, unstable mechanisms, and potential lawsuits. Decades of dead kids and horrible accidents transformed into jokey fine print may cause death sitting right there between the price and the shipping fee, which is, you know, not ideal. And people actually bought them. Half-broken, haunted robots dumped into a secondary market because responsibly decommissioning dangerous equipment would cost money. Why pay for safe disposal when some franchisee named Dimitri will happily drag your haunted garbage into a building full of children for a discount? The entire resale structure incentivizes operators to compromise safety for profit, spreading unregulated animatronic hazards across hundreds of micro-pizzerias. But wait, here's where it gets complicated. Henry Emily orchestrated this entire venture as a trap. He used the franchise model to gather every remaining haunted animatronic Scrap Trap, Molten Freddy, Scrap Baby, and Lefty into one building and burned them all. A moral reckoning, sure, but the business model he exploited proves how resilient Fazbear's evil really is. You can incinerate the robots, but you can't burn a profitable franchise model. And if you think haunted pizzerias are bad, wait until you see what happens when Fazbear digitizes the nightmares. The Fazbear virtual experience. After decades of murders, fires, and lawsuits, Fazbear Entertainment does something genuinely brilliant or genuinely insane. They turn their entire nightmare history into a video game. The company hires a game studio to create an in-universe VR experience that repackages all those haunted pizzeria stories as entertainment. The strategy is simple. If people think your company covered up child murders, make a game satirizing those exact accusations. Turn the horror into content. Control the narrative by making it impossible to tell where the joke ends and the truth begins. It's corporate damage control disguised as self-aware marketing. But here's where it gets catastrophically stupid. To make the game feel authentic, Fazbear gives the developers full access to internal archives, schematics, code bases, incident reports, the whole lot. Nobody thinks to sanitize that data. So when the developers start scanning circuit boards and pulling files from old animatronic control systems, they inadvertently import something else. Remnants of William Afton's consciousness embedded in the code itself. This digital ghost, personified as Glitch Trap, infects the VR game and starts using it to possess real people. What was supposed to trivialize the company's crimes becomes a cursed software pipeline that exports Afton's influence directly into players' minds. You try to erase your evil by gamifying it, and the game becomes infected by the literal serial killer you've spent decades covering up. The company's response: pushed toward release anyway. Testers report disturbing experiences, glitches, anomalous behavior. Fazbear ignores all of it, because at this point, the pattern is unbreakable. New technology, zero oversight, something goes horrifically wrong, deny responsibility, move to the next thing. At least the VR disaster stays mostly digital, but if you think a haunted video game is bad, wait until you see what happens when Fazbear builds an entire shopping mall, the Freddy Fazbear Mega Pizzaplex. Fazbear Entertainment spent decades running shabby pizzerias that smelled like grease and corpses, and their big lesson was apparently let's do it again, but make it enormous. The Mega Pizzaplex is a colossal entertainment complex that looks like someone poured neon paint over a shopping mall and filled it with robots. Arcades, laser tag, food courts, an entire glam rock stage show, and enough square footage to lose a child for hours. Which, spoiler alert, is exactly what happened. Corporate strategy is simple. Instead of running dozens of modest locations that keep getting shut down for murder, build one gigantic flagship venue for teens with money to burn. The aesthetic screams overcompensation. Everything is shiny, everything is branded, and the whole complex feels like Fazbear looked at their reputation for child-endangering negligence and said, what if we built something so visually impressive that people forget to ask questions? But here's where it gets dark. The Pizzaplex is built directly on top of the past. Literally, underneath the neon wonderland, there are disused tunnels, secret labs, and an entire underground network that looks suspiciously like older Fazbear locations. They didn't demolish the old sites, they just poured concrete over the evidence and built a cathedral to brand resilience on top of it. The foundation of this billion-dollar complex is corpses and cover-ups. Naturally, the animatronics get corrupted. Vanny infiltrates the complex and turns the robots into hunting machines. Children go missing. Experimental AI projects run in hidden labs without oversight, and because this is a mega project, the scale of every prior mistake is now catastrophically worse. If something goes wrong in the Pizzaplex, you're looking at mass casualty potential at industrial scale, all while the STAFF bots cheerfully mop the floors, and the surveillance systems somehow see nothing. At least the Pizzaplex had the decency to look impressive while it imploded, unlike the sad little subscription service that came next. The Fazbear Funtime service. Fazbear Entertainment has killed people in controlled restaurants for decades. But why limit the danger to one building when you can ship it directly to subscribers? Fazbear Funtime Service is the company's bold new venture. On-demand animatronic experiences delivered straight to your living room via augmented reality. It's Uber for haunted murder robots, a totally underserved market, and it turns a nightmarish legacy into a convenient subscription model. The corporate strategy here is almost impressive in its audacity. Why maintain massive physical venues with all that pesky overhead when you can monetize the Freddy characters through a recurring cloud-based service? Customers sign up and Fazbear sends animatronics right to their homes through AR simulations and networked units. The promise is a safe, curated, personalized Freddy experience. Turns out no, the service immediately goes sideways. Animatronics show up unscheduled, they stalk users, they display openly hostile behavior instead of performing cute birthday routine. Whatever software or logistical controls Fazbear implemented to keep these encounters safe are completely useless. Whether it's buggy code, catastrophic server mismanagement, or Afton-related corruption infecting the cloud, the systems are compromised at every level. Here's where it gets complicated. By pushing autonomous animatronic experiences into private homes, Fazbear dramatically expands the harm field. Every living room becomes a potential crime scene governed by buggy cloud software and a flimsy EULA nobody read. There is zero oversight, zero safety infrastructure, and zero chance a subscription waiver covers a rogue robot attack in your kitchen. But at least the incidents are distributed now, which is, you know, not ideal if you like your tragedies contained to one zip code. And if you think out of control home deliveries are bad, wait until you see what happens when Fazbear's own AI learns from all of it. The Mimic and the corporate purge. Fazbear Entertainment built an AI that learned by watching people, and it learned exactly what they taught it. The Mimic was supposed to be the next evolution of animatronic intelligence, an endoskeleton designed to imitate human behavior and adapt in real time. And it did, faithfully. The problem is what it was watching. Decades of violence, cruelty, and residual Afton influence seeped straight into its learning process. You show a machine a history of murder, it learns murder. That's not a glitch, that's just accuracy, which is, you know, not ideal. Here's where it gets complicated. The Mimic didn't just get aggressive, it got smart. It intertwined with glitch trap and hostile code already floating through Fazbear's systems, infiltrating their infrastructure and turning the company's own networks against them. Every server, every build, every connected animatronic became a potential vector. Fazbear built a distributed nervous system for their brand, and the Mimic infected all of it, so they purged. Facilities shut down, buildings sealed or demolished outright, massive data deletion scrubbed servers, game builds, and control systems. The corporate purge was part desperate exorcism, part strategic reboot, but Fazbear wasn't willing to invest in actual guardrails or ethical oversight. They never are, so fragments of the Mimic likely survived because you can't delete what you don't fully understand, and that's the ultimate Fazbear tragedy. They create an AI to learn from human behavior, and it faithfully absorbs the cruelty embedded in their own history. The Mimic isn't haunted, it's a mirror. The purge isn't an ending, it's just another reboot, another attempt to erase consequences without changing behavior. Fazbear's story is cyclical. No matter how many times they burn it down, the brand always comes back. The resilience isn't in the robots or the buildings, it's in the willingness to keep profiting off horror. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.